Welcome to the second episode of the IX Studio texturing series. In this episode, we will be covering the basics of texturing. We will explore a little bit about smart materials. We'll be exploring things about layer height, layer order, generators, masks, paint layers, fill layers, and a bunch of other really cool things. Alright, so now to get into some texturing. Now, first thing I want you to notice, inside of Substance Painter, is that the material mode is very light dependent. You can rotate the lighting around your model to get different highlights, different angles of your scene. To do this, you need to hold Shift and then right click, and then move your mouse around. But something I want to point out about the lighting is that lighting can be very dependent on how you view your colors. If we have this lighting, it makes pure white look slightly blue, green, yellow. Now, suppose I was texturing in this light view. I'm texturing. The colors I'm painting onto it are white, but I think I'm texturing a slightly orange object because the lighting makes it look orange. But the actual color, when I press C to go to base color, is actually gray or slightly white. The lighting environment map that I like to use to light up my models is Studio Tomoko. It is the HDRI with the most even lighting and has very little color. Now we've gotten through that, we can start with actual texturing. In Substance Painter, you have many options. Suppose you're texturing a wood table. Personally, I like to start all of my textures off with a smart material. Smart materials are very useful to start as a base for texturing. Because of the texture resolution limitations of Roblox, you don't really need to spend a whole much time thinking about the fine detail. So what I do is I can go up here and I can type wood. If I'm in the materials section, you can get these, which are just basic materials that come with different parameters. I like to use smart materials. They're more complex and they look better. For this one, I'm going to end up using this. It comes with a folder with a bunch of different layers. So let's open this folder and see how it is built. This is the base color of the smart material. The color, height, roughness, metal, and normal. This color is orange, almost slightly red. It's a nice peach. The roughness value is 0.79, the metallicness is 0, and then, when we open up this layer, we add on the fibers, which add color variation. So what we do here is we add a wood fiber mask. If I type here, I can choose different options. I can change the scale, I can play with anything that I really want. In this scenario, I'm going to leave it as default. Then, if it was set to normal, it would look like this. That would be no good. But because of the Substance Painter layer type list, you can scrub through the layer stack and figure out which one would best fit you. Personally for this, I like to use overlay. You can change the intensity and many other things. This layer affects the height. The sharpen doesn't do anything in the smart material. Then it does a grunge pass. Then it does a dirt mask. The dirt mask is a general dirt generator that adds dirt and dust wherever there's ambient occlusion on the mesh. You can fiddle around with these values to learn how useful each layer is. Then there's another layer where it goes in and it adds the darker values. The more breakup, the better. But in this case, in the case of Roblox, more breakup might be worse, as it might end up making the object look muddier because it doesn't really have the resolution to support high detail textures. But in this case, it seems like it'll be just fine. The next way to improve upon your object is by adding layers on top of your smart material. I personally like to look at my references. I open up PureRef, and let's examine different pieces of different objects. Now when I look at this object, I notice these things. The edges of the object are darkened. I like that effect, so I'm going to try to do a similar effect on this object. What I did here is I added a new layer, and then selected it, and then made it so that the layer only affected the base color of the map by pressing Alt and then clicking on base color. Then I right click on my layer, I add a black mask, and then add a curvature generator onto that. Now we have this is the base color. What I can do is I can dial in the mask so that it only affects the edges. Or I can open up this little tab down here and I can play around with these little sliders and adjust the value to get a more precise mask, or what I'm looking for. For this is just fine. Now we can move on to other things like adding a dirt layer. This is a more subtle layer and it probably won't come through a whole lot in the final texture, but I think it's something every texture should have. Adding a dirt layer is very important. It's a simple step that will make your objects look a whole lot better. What I start off with is I start off with a base color, slightly grungy, orangish red, a dirt color, there we go. I can now affect the dirt level. It may be hard to see at first, but to see exactly what your mask is, what you can do is you can hold Alt and then click on the layer mask. It'll show you exactly what your layer looks like in a black and white view. I wanted a more spotty approach, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the contrast a little and give it a little bit more gain. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a fill layer on top and add some black and white spots to give it a little breakup. Now what you can do is, now that you've added your dirt generator, you can go and add a levels mask onto it. You can adjust the value of that mask. You can select which parts to clip out, which parts to highlight up. You can adjust it to your liking. Then what you can do is you can right click, add another fill on top of that, and then you can change that fill to linear dodge, which will add the mask on top of the other mask. And you can start combining masks and making more complex shapes and stuff. It's really cool. In this case, I wanted to add some splotches, so what I did is I added a black and white spot. Now I'm going to change the balance of it down from 75 to 20. I'm going to fiddle around with the settings like changing contrast and UV projection. I think I'm going to end up putting it on triplanar projection. I think that covers the basics of Substance Painter. Texturing is very hard and very complex, and it's a very, very difficult skill to get used to at first. Once you start exploring more of the Substance Painter mask and layer features, it'll become easier to you.